Hello there, friends. Word of Gord, and this is a very quick follow-up to yesterday's story of contact with the spirit of Richard Wright, keyboardist of Pink Floyd. Now, as I dare say you noticed, that was a little rushed. There was a little too much information to be conveyed in too short a time. So I realized as soon as I was done how much I'd missed out. So let me get back to a few important points, I think. He seemed to have chosen to live in the astral version of the Greek islands in the Aegean Sea. I believe he'd spent quite a bit of time in his life there, and when made aware of the living possibilities on the astral plane, one of which is really you can live anywhere you want. There's no restrictions other than your imagination and your desire. He picked domicile in that area, just I think out of love as much as anything else. Plus, he would have been told, not necessarily by me, as other guides helped him settle, that he could move around by the power of thought. Traveling is no problem on the astral plane. Once you've had it explained to you, you can move from one area of the astral plane to another with just a twinkle of a thought, and you're there. So if he, for example, has family and friends who have passed on and are living in the astral version of England, he can easily go there. Not a problem. I have a strong memory of sitting with him outside the house, looking out onto what I assume is the astral version of the Aegean Sea, that beautiful Mediterranean blue, and feeling the breeze on our hair and our faces as we discussed the wonders of life and some of his memories and wishes for others. When I asked him if he had a message for the legion of Pink Floyd fans, some of whom are bound to see this, he thanked them for all their, love and attention throughout the years. And he obviously realizes and feels quite strongly that as a musician and as a creator, he'd be not much without his audience. He did seem very genuinely grateful to me. He did talk also about the great wondrous beauty that he, of course, has just discovered, or rediscovered if you choose to take the reincarnation viewpoint, the great beauty of the astral plane. And he wanted me to convey that to you all as something for you all to look forward to. That as far as he's concerned, it is indeed real, the wonders and beauty of the heavenly worlds. And he wanted this also to be conveyed to his former band members and family. And as I said earlier, that's maybe not possible for me to do in a personal way. I'm sure there would be a great tangle of legal and publicity people that I would have to get through, and I would perhaps just be seen as some sort of crank or, oh, just one of those strange psychics, So I'm afraid this YouTube video will have to suffice. In terms of my, I'd said, ongoing psychic contacts with various members of Pink Floyd over the years, I realize that can sound just like an obsessed fan. And probably not much I can say will convince you otherwise, but let me just point out an interesting factoid. About a year or so before the Ron Geeson inspired and reorchestrated version of Atom Heart Mother, which was, I believe, premiered at Cadogan Hall in Chelsea about a year ago. But a year before that, I had a strong psychic contact with David Gilmour, one of several, but this one's particularly interesting. And he was actually just finishing a rehearsal of Atom Heart Mother, which was at the time a great pleasure to me because it's always been one of my favorite Pink Floyd pieces. And as any serious Floyd fan will know, over the years since 1970, most of them have talked it down rather strenuously. And I think to have Gilmour practicing it a year or more before the actual performance was very interesting to me. There was no indication in any way in any of the Pink Floyd publicity that any of them would ever be performing it again. And they would have sure just laughed at the notion, Gilmour included. Anyway, that was an interesting point for me, and I think, I hope for you too. So, other points. Well, I should talk about the various levels of the astral plane. There are many levels. Not everyone chooses to live on the astral version of the Greek islands, but Richard Wright has, or perhaps he'll just make that one of his homes. One is not restricted to just one home, although most people are quite happy with that. And there are people that live in astral plane cities. People love to live in towns and cities together. Many millions of people choose to do that. And many people also choose to sort of, not exactly hide in the countryside, but, a more private existence. And there is endless acres of countryside and forest and mountain and prairie and plain and, every variation thereof to secrete oneself in. There are many books on life in the astral plane. A lot of them, unfortunately, are out of print. A good current one is this one, Beyond Death, Conditions in the Afterlife by Philip Solomon. I would certainly recommend that. And my own first book, Eternal Life and How to Enjoy It, with the nice-looking young man on the coffin there. So I hope that covers some of the issues I neglected to get to on the first run-through. Obviously, Richard Wright is settled and happy and playing at least some music. I mean, he's sailing a lot, and he did say something about working on some ideas he had developed while working on an album of piano tunes in the last year or so of his life. So he's obviously continuing with that, although I think the great wonders of the afterlife existence have rather got him enraptured, as they do many people. He did also say something about how happy he was on that final David Gilmour tour that he played in, but I think that was made obvious before he passed, but it still seemed to be resonating within him, how much joy and pleasure he got out of that tour, not to mention standing ovations, as we all know. So for those of you who are concerned about him, I would say worry no more. Certainly send your prayers to his family, who may still be grieving his absence.